Good morning and welcome to Chez Lez Fleur podcast. This is the podcast where we explore the journeys of women in small business and the blooming experiences they're having and all the exciting things that the entrepreneurial spirit gives us and creates for us and that we create for it. And today my guest is Hope Birsh, and she owns Maryland Saddlery in Maryland. And you have all sorts of things you do. You have clothing, you have retail, you have consignment. Hope, tell us more about what you do.
So we started many years ago, just straight up retail, a very classic model. I had been teaching horseback riding. I'd been told by my brother, who was a restaurant critic, you don't open a restaurant unless you know 200 people who will come and eat there all the time, not just once. And I felt I had taught about 1,000 kids to ride because I was working at a private school that had it used to be cavalry, but that was just then a riding program. So I had a lot of students who I knew would come and shop with me. There was white space for a good store. I had my father at the time who was guiding me and how to get this all worked out. And I just threw in and opened a little tiny 700 square foot, actually in a florist shop. My first store was in a florist shop. So the florist, it was his home he'd grown up in, and they were like third generation florists, and they moved the flower shop to the back, and I was in the front in the actual house. And we had an upstairs loft and a downstairs store, and we outgrew it. We're coming into our 35th year.
Wow. Yeah. So what excited you about horses in the beginning? Like you're attracted to equestrian.
You can see my horse behind me.
Yes, we do see that. It's beautiful.
I don't know if you can see that if you're doing purely pod. So I am an animal lover, and I did everything my older brother did. My older brother loves horses. He has had a horse run in Kentucky Derby. Has bred thoroughbreds, but as a kid, he loved horses, and I loved my brother, and I loved animals. So it was I started riding very young and fell in love with horses in general. And horses are very much like a retail store. They're big and imposing, and you have to train them well, but you also have to learn and listen from them and watch the behavior of them to understand how best to move. And it's like a dance. It's like a great, running a great store is like a great dance. I have 3 stores that are a combination of new, used, and overstock, and a women's clothing store, which is a typical buy it, sell it, turn it store. And they're all incredibly different children. My oldest store is the one I spend my day in. That one I'm most familiar with. It's near my house. It's who I am. It's who the people who work there are. And we have cultural differences between my other 2 stores that are an hour south and an hour north. And it sounds like a funny thing to say, but their customers are different, and how they approach sales and how they approach even the people that are working there are very, very, very different. And what they're interested in purchasing and how they purchase is different. So studying and listening and watching is really the best thing you can do for your store.
So true. So true. What kind of change did you see in people coming to equestrian that happened during the pandemic?
Well, God bless, I wasn't in catering. I didn't lose my business. I didn't go under. Very, very, very quickly, people went riding. It was a breath of fresh air for everybody to get out and about. But for my industry, yeah, exactly. But my industry was dying in its own kind of way, in a really interesting way. People were not purchasing horses. They didn't want to board them. They just said they're too expensive. They said they had no access to them. They weren't sure how they were going to ride. Janet knows I spent many years going to the Maryland State Fair, trying to get people to meet horses and learn about our industry. And we tried everything we could to grow our industry, everything. I've spent years and years and years grassroots growing, trying to teach people that they can just have an interaction with horses that doesn't have to be expensive. But COVID, our industry grew 40%. And it didn't go away. People who long to be outdoors and riding a horse, whose kids were lacrosse kids, or so instead of having a population of customers by default, okay, and by default's a kind of funny thing, right? Like if you have a store that sells soccer equipment, the only people you get are people who buy soccer equipment, obviously. So our horse store was people who ride horses came in, and people who love to ride horses came in. And those people by default were those of us who tend to run the wrong direction on any field of any play there is. If you put us on a football field, we run the wrong direction. If you put us on a field hockey field, we don't know what offsides is. We run the wrong direction. So the horse industry is full of independent women who don't play well with others generally, and are not as coordinated on our own 2 feet as we are on a horse. But the pandemic brought in a competitive, athletic, passionate group of people that I never knew we would ever capture. And because the pandemic lasted as long as it did, they fell in love. They bought horses. They became committed generationally. Mothers and daughters bought horses. God bless COVID.
Okay, one of the businesses you have is a consignment store, and you have created I think is brilliant, a consignment model that's exceptional to what people think of when they hear about consignment, gathering consignment, having consignment. So tell us about that, because I think it is fabulous.
So I used to be the weird kid on the block. First, I was a regular store, right? And everyone thought, oh, it's a nice store. But when Janet and I met many years ago, the group said, consignment, ew, like, ew, where do you get your stuff? And how do you get your stuff? And how do you know what's coming in your store? I still buy almost 25% new. So it's not completely consignment. My attempt to buy less new is legendary. Like every day I try not to pay for something. So this is my goal as a retailer, is to feed off of other retailers in America who can't sell something, and it's something I need to sell. So I've been working really hard at that. Now, safety equipment, I buy new. I don't screw around with safety equipment, helmets, safety vests, and things like that. But if I can get riding boots in a box that's new for free from somebody else, and then sell it on consignment, and then pay the retailer for the things they can't sell, it's a win-win across the board. So we evolved into this sort of triple threat, which is new, used, and overstock. Used, my customers bring in so much used riding equipment and apparel that we move it with 4 hotel laundry carts pretty much every day, back and forth across our parking lot. That much. There's that. They back up their cars, and their cars like vomit on the ground, and we collect it all up and we go through it. We have very high bar of what we take. We take very good, and it was hard because everyone thinks their stuff is fabulous, even though that was their grandmother's, and it smells. And we've gotten pretty tough at saying, like, you wouldn't want to buy that. You have to put your buyer hat on, not your seller hat, not your emotionally attached hat. So we evolved into used because the online was kicking our proverbial butts. We couldn't compete because we sell a commodity. Anything we sell can be purchased online, whether it's apparel or equipment. But consignment is a funny little space where it's less expensive, and it's a relationship between the product and yourself. Like, how used is this? Am I willing to buy something used? Some people won't buy shoes. Some people won't buy equipment. Some people buy everything. You know, it's a personal decision. And now I'm the cool kid because it's reuse. It's It's ethical, it's sustainable, it's environmentally smart. So I went from like the weirdo retailer to the other side. The other piece of it is if you have a retail store that's successful, but you have this sale room and it's a lot, like if you're a big retail store, you have a lot, you literally can open your own consignment store literally next door. You cannot have your sale room in your building, but if you put your sale room across the parking lot or you section it up, it cannot be the same register. Now, in my case, it is because we have this sort of weird aura going. But to begin with, we put our consignment across the parking lot, and people were like, wow, new with tags. And all it was my sales stuff moving over to the other side of the parking. And they're like, oh my God, it's new with tags. And I was able to move the price back up. So we learned very quickly how to like work the numbers. So, you know, we have nothing on sale, and our stores are 100% new, except for like stocked safety equipment and things that must be there on a regular basis. Sorry. Other than that, my stores are 100% new, pretty much every 120 days.
Yeah. So it's great turnaround and great. It works for everybody. Like you say, it's sustainable and
you can even, sorry.
Well, it keeps lots of people taking part in equestrian events because they have all sorts of options at price points that they can buy what they need.
Exactly right. So our biggest challenge this year is education of the 40% new people. They don't know they can bring the things back in.
Right.
So right now I'm working on a postcard that is going to be printed that has a QR code that has more explanation, but I'm more of a 1, 2, 3 of consigning. That's going to go out with every shopper so that they know if somebody grows out of it, they really need to bring it back. Or we pay them cash for something if their kids have instead of like tossing it in the trash or go to Goodwill, bring it back to us and we'll buy that equipment back. Just like people are used to doing that with soccer cleats, right?
And hockey equipment.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right,
skis,
exactly.
You know, the ski swap. You know, people. Right. You're right. People are used to doing it with other activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's been a challenge with the new people to explain that to them. They like to buy used, but then they forget where it comes from, how it got there.
Right. You also have other retailers across the country send you some of their consignment stuff.
Right. So, you know, I've partnered with the other retailers and said, like, your sale room isn't making you money. And it's, you know, your profits are tied up in this thing. And part of what I do is teach them about what that means to them. One of the things we talk about is lost opportunity, right? Like your stuff is tied up in the shape of something you purchased last year. And it could be a t-shirt, it could be a vase, it could be a gift. It doesn't really matter. It's sitting there in your sale room, and your head, you're thinking, I paid good money for that. If anyone ever says that to me, I hate that. Everyone's money is good, right? Our money is all equal. That is a lost opportunity to put into your store things that will turn and are beautiful and that will make you money. And so I teach them what lost opportunity costs mean. We talk about, when does profit begin? People are very unclear about when profit begins in a regular retail store. Profit begins at break even. Profit begins at break even. And so what that means is if you buy 6 things and they cost you $10 each, you spent $60 on it and you mark it up, full markup, you need to sell 3 before you can say you've made a profit or you've been successful. And if you can't sell 3, then you haven't broken even. If you haven't broken even, and I don't even talk about shipping. God only knows. And hopefully you're putting shipping in your costs now. If you sell 3, if you sell the 4th one for $1, you've made a profit. But you've made $1. So what? You've made $1. So don't hang on to those last 2 or that last one. You've paid yourself back. Maybe it wasn't the greatest decision, but it was okay. You sold 1 more, maybe 2. That last one owes you nothing. You're in profit. Once you hit that break even, you're in profit. People don't really understand that. So we talk about that. Everything in your sale room you've paid for, and it's paid you back. pretty much everything, unless you made some really crazy mistake. Everything in that sale room has been paid for and has paid you back and maybe made some money. So if you get $1 for it, or if you get $1,000 for it, it doesn't matter. Actually, what matters is your store looks messy. Get the stuff out of your store. Find another store that's like you and partner with them. Swap sale rooms. Just swap. I'll send you mine. Use some of yours. You'd be surprised. You would be surprised how well someone else's junk will sell in your store.
Well, and it's, like I had a friend years ago, and I mean, Eaton's is no longer with us, but she was a buyer for Eaton's, and her philosophy was, I buy 1/3 that I hate, I buy 1/3 that I love, and I buy 1/3 that I'm not sure of. So if your stuff that you bought that maybe you hated, but you find out your customers are in the same boat, swap it with somebody whose customers may move that to the I love this category, and everybody's winning.
So if you asked me what was the one thing you learned from opening Overstock, the one most important thing, I will tell you what it is my store was curated too tightly. I made assumptions and I made judgments, and we called goggles. My goggles were too tight. I was looking through my own goggles too tightly. Now, I wasn't going to buy things that I was very unsure of. We call it the purple spotted breech. Like, I wasn't going to buy the purple spotted leather seated breech. I liked it. It was fun. I could sell 2 maybe, but I had to buy 6.
Right.
So, but what I learned from other people sending me stuff all over the country was that I had an amazing capacity to sell the purple spotted breech. I probably could have sold 14. I didn't know what I didn't know. So it was an amazing learning experience to see what I can actually sell. And then we've moved on. Our last piece of it now is adding manufacturers into this mix. It's a little scarier, to be honest with you. I very recently talked a manufacturer into selling me a mistake she made. And the mistake she made was that she was pairing 2 things together, and it was selling really well. 2 really weird things that sold really well. So she then decided, and the first thing that she sells well. The second thing, she matched with it and they both sold. But the second thing is not in her wheelhouse in general. So she thought she could buy and sell that. She was like, I can now do this one too. And she couldn't. And so she called me. She said, would you like a good deal on X? And I was like, I don't buy anything. Like I said, my goal is to buy nothing. I said, I'm sorry, I don't buy anything. I'll sell it for you on consignment and send you money. And I could probably get your money back out that you spent, which for a manufacturer is like amazing. So she said, well, how about I just send you all of it? They literally sent me, and these are saddle pads that go under a saddle. She literally sent me 950 saddle pads, 5 pallet loads.
You're up for it, Hope. You can do it.
So I'm out there hustling right now, because this is a bit of a bigger chew for us, but we'll get it. We'll get it done. Will. Because unlike flowers, it won't go bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm in awe of what you do. I'm in awe of how you predict what to purchase. I mean, that has always been, you're a goddess at that. I don't even know how you know.
Well, it's the same principle, keeping good records year after year. And what I say to other florists when they're talking about is write down what the weather was too, like include that, because if it was the biggest snowstorm of the year, that tells you why there were no sales. And sometimes it's as simple as the weather was awful.
Huh. Yeah.
Or we, like last year when we had that big windstorm and nobody had power for 4 days. Okay, well, that's why you had terrible sales, because your store was closed. It was the weather. And everything else, sales, how many people were in your store, all the records that small business keeps. And like, I appreciate your kind words, but every once in a while there is stuff that just has to get thrown out.
Yeah.
You know, we just didn't buy well.
It's hard. Buying well is hard, but you know, if I could teach other stores to partner with each other, that would be the best solution for everybody. You know,
Yeah.
if we could, and I don't mean one thing at a time. We are crazy. You tell me you have things to send me, you put it in a box and tell me the size, and I send you a label. I don't even ask you what's in the box. I just figure you're in the same business as me. I have a shot at selling it. But the trick is I don't return it. So I give it 120 days on the floor to my consignor. And then what I do with it after that is my bottom line. But we have a ridiculously high sell-through rate. So my consignors mostly get it.
You know, it fits all the it checks all the boxes. You know, like you said earlier, sustainable. It's a great partnership. It's a learning opportunity for the people sending you things. It's just win-win-win all the way around. And your customers get some great prices.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing we teach is carrying cost, which again, that is not, I mean, but florists make mistakes with vases, right? They go to some crazy gift show and buy. I knew somebody who used to keep them in her home in a basement. I don't know who that is. But the truth is everybody can overbuy at some point or other, but it may not, it's either an investment or it's carrying cost. And there's always carrying cost even with an investment, but if you're buying at such a great rate that you're able to store it and use it later, that's fine. But carrying costs can be up to 30% a year. So if you buy something for $100, next year it costs you 130, the year after it costs you 160, whatever, another 30% on top of 130. By year 3, it's above retail. By year 4, you're an idiot, you know.
Yes. Oh, it's always great to talk to you, Hope. And you're just so insightful and so positive and so energetic. And I really admire everything you do in your business. It's so exciting to hear. One of the things we like to do here is we like to end our podcast with 5 questions that you're to answer, pretty rapidly. And I always let my American friends know that there will be some Canadian content. So are you up for that?
Sure.
Okay. Let's go. Thin crust or regular?
Oh, thin. New Yorker. Mm-hmm.
Lamaze or Miller?
Drugs.
Okay. Sneakers or sandals?
Oh, sneakers.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sunrise or sunset?
Both.
Yeah. It's hard to choose, isn't it? It's like choosing like choosing a favorite child.
I'm up for both. I used to be a night person and now I'm up so early. I'm both.
Well, thank you for being on the show, and we look forward to sharing stories of all sorts of exciting women that are flourishing and blooming and growing in their business. Hope, I really, again, appreciate you taking time to be with us. You've got a great business and you're a great mentor to so many, and I really feel fortunate to have you as a friend. And I know that you're busy, and I appreciate you taking the time. At Chez Lez Fleur podcast, we're looking for vibrant and growing, blooming businesses with women at the helm. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. If you're visiting us for the first time, welcome. If you're a returning visitor, we welcome you back again. Next week, we are going to be hearing from Monica Carmichael, and she is one of Ontario's first car dealers that is a principal at her dealership, and she has Trent Valley Honda. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.